So, welcome to the Adventures in Learning podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Diane, and joy is the word that comes to mind when I think about our next guest. Kayla Harren is the illustrator of so many beautiful books, including This Is How We Play and the most recent, This Is How We Talk. We're also going to be going to South Africa together as part of a Wild Tomorrow conservation trip, and I'm just so excited to bring her to you today. Kayla, welcome to the show.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here talking with you.
So let's dive right in. And I'd love to talk about your two books that are, the books that you've got out right now, because it's Disability Pride Month. And I know I've been hearing from graduate students that as they're looking to provide books that are windows and mirrors, books that represent children with different abilities, doing all kinds of things where the disability isn't necessarily centered as the primary focus seem to be lacking. And you have not one, but at least two books that really center joy and center different experiences. And I thought maybe you could start by talking a little bit about your work.
Yay. Yeah, the authors of This Is How We Play and This Is How We Talk, Jessica Slice and Caroline Cupp, they are both disabled mothers and activists, and that was their goal with these books is, as disabled mothers, they were looking for books to share with their kids that showed disabled adults. And they were looking and looking, and I don't think they could find any. There were some disabled children, but not just disabled people in general. And they wanted to show something, have books out there that were just full of joy, that people in all kinds of bodies can play. You just get creative and adaptive, and everybody deserves to find joy and play.
Well, and your illustrations absolutely, the joy screams off the page as you look at your work. And I'm wondering, how did you go about sort of researching? Because I assume there was some research that went into creating these illustrations. How did you go about doing that?
Oh, yeah. So first I got advice from the authors. In order for them to write the book, they interviewed a bunch of families. I can't remember the number, like 20 different families, each with a disabled family member, and they were the inspiration for each spread of the book. So I was able to see some reference photos and get their notes. And then also the publisher recommended a bunch of books about disabilities from disabled activists. So I read a lot of books, and there were picture books and adult novels, and then there were some reference photos from the families they interviewed. And I also now follow a bunch of disabled influencers on Instagram. I just like did all kinds of research for this book because it was about making the people feel real and alive, and accuracy was super important, but also fun. Like they have to be accurate, but also, there's some movement, there's some joy, there's some fun. So not just like textbook, not like here's what a wheelchair looks like and it's very rigid and scientific. It's sort of accurate but fun. So it's kind of a hard balance to find.
Well, and you're also not telling a single story. And I think that's what also makes it so rich is it's not zeroing in on one particular disability. You show a wide range of people in everyday life. And I'm wondering, would you be willing to share a couple of pages from the book to sort of give us a flavor of it?
Yeah. Yeah, the cover itself was my favorite part to illustrate because when I get a project like this where it's like just show a lot of diversity, make a lot of people feel seen, then it's overwhelming because there's no way I'll ever fit everyone into the book. And so I just am like cramming as many people as I can, like, oh, what if a kid looks like this? Or I saw on the street someone who looked like this, I gotta include them. So I just love packing illustrations with as many people as I can. So the cover is actually my favorite. And the dust jacket extends even a little bit farther.
Oh, fun. And I love the fact that it goes from a read aloud through all kinds of different parts of your day.
Yeah, this book, This Is How We Talk, is the second one, the companion to This Is How We Play. And the authors had the idea that this book would take place over the course of a day, over a course of a school day. So it starts out, this was very fun for me to do the end papers because it's in sort of like a mural style that kids painted.
And they're
So
so bright and vivid.
Thanks. It was fun to illustrate like this because so many of my characters are just very, very realistic. So it's takes me kind of a long time to draw them. And then this, I was like, ooh, it's fun, just being free, having fun. So it starts out with kids getting ready for school and all the various ways that they communicate. Sometimes there's just communication through body language. Sometimes they're writing. And this was another one of my favorites. I just like adding really interesting light to illustrations. I think because when I do a book that takes place in reality, everyone's following the laws of physics. I just fear that it could be boring, just people doing people stuff. So I'm like, how can I make this interesting and tell the story and highlight the important parts of the image? And so that's when I try and add a lot of interesting lighting.
Oh, and that would be such a really fun thing for people to do as they're reading the book is to follow the light and sort of see what you're spotlighting.
Yeah, there's sparkly things around what's important. And then this one, as it goes through the course of the day, we start at sunrise, then we go to afternoon light, and then we do end in darkness at nighttime.
It's just beautiful. And
Yeah.
I love the fact that there are so many different people sitting at the table. You've got just the joy of everyday family life, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Your work, as I was looking at it and sort of going through your website as well, there's this beautiful diversity in all that you do. And I was going to ask, are you drawn to projects that allow you to explore the wonderful diversity of the human experience?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of funny how my career trajectory has changed. I started off doing animal books and animal books about nature. And then I started doing just very silly books that were kind of, like fun, rhymey, alphabet, messy, silly books. And then I think the world kind of changed a little bit, and the projects that I was getting hired to do started getting more serious. My style got more realistic, and it was about just making kids feel seen and understood and showing the complexity of our world. And so now I do a lot of people, and I think that's super fun because I like really detailed work. I just like adding lots of details and hidden Easter eggs and stuff. And I look at, or I think of my art as being a conversation starter. So like the job of my art is to like the words in a picture book tell you what's happening, and then my art is there to tell you how to feel about that and also to start conversations. So I want kids to be looking at all the details and then ask in their safe learning environment, like, why does this person have this on their body, or like what's this? And then it's just a safe way to ask these questions, have these conversations, talk about how different people are, and you're avoiding that like possible embarrassment or offensiveness if you're doing it in the real world when you encounter these situations. So this is the way to start those conversations in the safe place.
Well, and one of the things I think is a hallmark of a great illustrator is you've got the text, but then you extend it and you add those Easter eggs or those extra details, the things that allow you to enter the story and ask questions. And that's what I feel I get in terms of just the richness of what you've put out is there's additional stuff to sort of engage with the story and to get curious about. And that's really fun.
Yeah, that's what's fun for me.
So, how did you get into illustrating in the first place? Tell us a little bit about your adventures in learning. Were you always interested in drawing and creating, or is that something that came later?
I definitely was. I definitely was interested in drawing and writing, but I didn't understand that that could be a job. It was just sort of like saying you wanted to be an illustrator was the same as saying you want to be an actor. It's like it works out for some select few, but that's not like a realistic thing. Um, so I just knew that I wanted to go to school in New York City when it was time to apply for colleges, and so I looked at what is the possible degrees that I could study, and there was an art history degree at all colleges. They seemed to have their art program was art history, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll do art history, even though I'm terrible at remembering names and dates, and history itself isn't my strongest subject. But I was like, okay, so I'll apply to NYU. And I guess my career has started off with a rejection, and then that's like sort of catapulted where I am now because I applied to NYU and I didn't get in. So then I was like, oh no, what do I do? And when I was in New York City on the subway, I saw an ad for the School of Visual Arts, and it just kind of blew my mind. I was like, there is an entire college just for art. Like, how did I not know about this before? And so that's what got the idea in my head that I could just study art and then be in New York City. And then it just kind of happened from there. I took a children's book class at SVA and realized this is what I got to do.
That's wonderful. And as you said, your career has sort of spanned a wide range of things from animal books to realistic. And you and I are going to South Africa together later this fall, and we're going as part of a conservation program with children's book authors and illustrators and folks like me who love it and support the industry. I'm wondering what sort of is driving you to want to go to South Africa. Are there more animal books potentially coming out in the future?
I really hope so. I mean, I want to keep doing people books, but animal books for sure. That's what started my career. So before I ever had any books traditionally published, I had just graduated from college and I was sending my work to publishers, getting rejected, more rejections. I luckily, through a friend of a friend of a friend of my husband's uncle, was a scientist at the Wild Nature Institute, which is an organization in Tanzania where these scientists study giraffes. They've developed this photography technology to identify giraffes based on their patterns because each giraffe's spot patterns is unique to them, like a fingerprint. And so they're tracking the giraffes. And Monica Bond, a scientist at Wild Nature Institute, wrote a picture book and she needed an illustrator. And so I illustrated the book. Juma the Giraffe was my very first picture book. And this was so much fun that the author, Monica Bond, wrote another book about elephants and then another one about rhinos. And they're all
Love it.
fun storybooks that are related to wildlife conservation, just getting kids excited about wildlife in Africa. And then through that connection, I was recommended to another organization called Lion Landscapes, and they also do conservation work for large carnivores. So the first one I did was Durham the Lion Defender, and then another one about hyenas, and then another one about uh, hornbills. And so I have done all these books about African wildlife, and yet I've never been to Africa. I would just use the reference photos and videos that the scientists in Africa would send to me. And so I thought, I really got to go there someday. And then I started scrolling on Instagram, and a bunch of artists that I follow, were showing pictures of themselves in Africa with other children's book illustrators. And I was like, what is this? That sounds like amazing. Like, why I want to do that. And then when I saw that you could apply to go to South Africa with CBCC, I was like, I have to. This is just like made for me. So that's my story and how I got into it.
I love that. And I love sort of the way that this is a spiral and is bringing you back to sort of that beginning passion from your career. That's really cool. Is there anything that you're like dreaming of or particularly hoping to see while you're in South Africa?
I'm just ready for everything, like from dung beetles to giraffes. I want to see it all.
I
What about
agree with
you?
you.
I'm curious about your story.
So, I've always loved animals and have been fascinated by them. And like as I've taught STEM and STEAM to kids, I've always included animals because it's such an accessible way to get kids interested in science. It's something relatable and connectable. And then as we start exploring animal life, we can move into habitats, biomes, and other people. And so I've always had a little kid's fascination about it. And I had interviewed Candace Fleming for the podcast back when I first started this, and it was right as she was getting ready to go on the trip to South Africa. And so I wound up following the whole trip on Instagram, and I thought, I would love to join at some point. Like that would be just such the coolest trip ever. And so when they opened up the applications, I thought, well, it's a long shot, but I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and apply and just see what happens. And when Haley and John said, yes, you get to go, I was dancing around the living room, just so happy because I've never been to Africa. I've dreamed about these things and I'm just so excited to be able to see it, to be there with you all, and hopefully to find ways to build connections and bring this back in a way that we can get kids and teachers asking questions and feeling that same sort of wonder that we do as adults to make it accessible for them. So
Mm.
that's kind of my hope. Plus, there's that option to see the penguins in Cape Town at the very end. And my bucket list goal in life now is to see all 18 species of penguins in the wild.
Oh my goodness, what number are you at right now?
I am currently at 4, but by the end of this year, I'll be at 6.
Nice.
So, it's a good life bucket goal.
Yes, I love that. That's a fantastic goal.
And I
Cool.
also want to be able to help tell the stories of the helpers, the people who are doing the work of conservation. And I think that that's part of what I like about Wild Tomorrow is that they're really working with the people who live on the land as they're looking at rewilding. So it's not a coming in and doing something, it's a how can we collaborate together to make this work for everybody.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm also excited to be around hopeful people. Like, if you're going to
Yes.
dedicate your life to wildlife conservation, you have to have hope that it can get better. And I feel like I just really want to be surrounded by that kind of energy.